I inherited a large fortune from my family, and squandered a significant portion of it on the wild adventures of my youth. But I was able to regain consciousness and see that wealth will not last long, and will soon disappear when people spend too much money like me. Furthermore, I think that in my careless and unorganized life, I have wasted time, which is the most precious thing in the world. I also see that the greatest suffering among all sufferings is poverty in old age. I remember the famous saying of the great Solomon in the past that I often heard my father repeat: "It is easier to go into the grave than to live in poverty." Deeply absorbing those thoughts, I collected all the remaining assets and auctioned them off in the middle of the market, all the furniture, beds, cabinets, tables and chairs. After that, I tried to make friends with a few merchants. Engaged in sea trade, I consulted with experienced people to hear good advice. Finally, I decided to make a profit from the remaining capital and, once I had made that decision, to implement it immediately without delay. I went to Balsora and there landed on a ship that was chartered with many other merchants. We sailed straight to the East Indies through the Persian Gulf formed by the happy Arabian coast on the right and the Persian coast on the left, the widest part of which, according to general opinion, is about 70 nautical miles. Leaving the Persian Gulf, we enter the Levant Sea, which is also the vast Indian Sea. On one side it is limited by the coast of Abyssinia, and to reach the Vakvak archipelago the distance is 4,500 nautical miles. At first I suffered from seasickness, but then I got used to it and my health recovered very quickly. Along the way, we stopped at many islands to buy, sell or exchange goods. One day while the boat was sailing, the calm wind stopped our boat in front of a small island on the water. Its green color looked like a pasture. The captain lowered the sails, steered the ship to the island and allowed those on board to go ashore if they wished. I was also one of the people who set foot on the island. But while we were having fun, eating, drinking, and relieving our fatigue, we suddenly felt the island vibrate and give a strong thud. Saying this, Scheherazade stopped because the sky was already bright. At the end of the next night she continued, "Oh, your Majesty." Sinbad continued the story. On the ship, everyone saw the island shaking and quickly called for us to get on board immediately to avoid drowning. What we thought was a small island was actually the back of a giant whale. Those who were quick jumped into the boat, others jumped in to swim, and I, who was slow, remained on the island, or rather on the whale and number 39's back as it dived into the sea. I only had enough time to grab a piece of board brought from the ship to light a fire. At that moment, the captain, after picking up the people in the boat and a few swimmers in the water, wanted to take advantage of the favorable wind that had just arisen, so he raised the sails and let the ship sail down, and so I was left without hope. Catch up with. I was buffeted by the ocean waves, sometimes pushed to one side, sometimes pushed to the other side, having to fight against the waves for my life all day and into the next night. In the morning, I found that I had no more strength and was desperate to avoid death, but fortunately, a strong wave washed me ashore on an island. The bank was high and dangerous. It took me a lot of effort to climb up, but if it weren't and #39 for the tree roots that fate had tremblingly exposed there, I would have had no way to climb up. Even though I was very weak because I had struggled so many times with the ocean waves without anything in my stomach the whole day before, I still tried to crawl and find some edible leaves and grass to put in my mouth and chew. Luckily, I found a clear and fresh water stream that contributed a lot to my recovery. Feeling full again, I entered the island, wandering aimlessly. Arriving at a beautiful grass field, I saw a horse grazing there. Taking steps toward that direction, I was half afraid and half happy. I didn't and #39 know if I was looking for death or if I saw a good opportunity to ensure my life. Coming closer, I realized it was a mare tied to a stake. Its beauty caught my attention, but while I was looking at it, I heard a man and number 39's voice from the ground. A moment later, that person appeared and approached me and asked who I was. I told him my story. He immediately took my hand and led me into a cave where there were many other people. They looked surprised to see me and I was equally surprised to see them. Eat some food that these people brought and then I asked them what they were doing in this seemingly desolate place. They said they were the guardians of King Muraj, the king of this island. Every year during this season, as usual, they have to bring the king and number 39's mares here, tie them to stakes like I saw, to wait for the walrus to come up from the sea to mate. After mating, the walrus will usually eat the mare. To stop it, they had to scream loudly to force it to dive back into the sea. After finishing the work, they will bring the mare back and the foals born, called seahorses, will be reserved for the king and number 39's use. They added that they had to leave the next day. Luckily I arrived at the right time, otherwise I definitely wouldn't and #39 have survived because the houses here are very far away. Without a guide it would have been difficult to get to them. While these horsemen were talking to me, the walrus emerged from the sea just as they said. It jumped up on the mare, and after mating, it intended to eat her. But hearing the loud screams, it abandoned its prey and quickly dived into the sea and disappeared. The next day they set out for the island capital with the mares and I followed them. When I arrived, I was introduced to King Muraj. He asked me who I was and why I had come to his country. When I told him all about my recent misfortune, he expressed his condolences for my misfortune. At the same time, he ordered his courtiers to take care of me and not let me lack anything. This order was scrupulously carried out and I can only praise the king and number 39's generosity and the strict execution of the order by the court officials. Because I and number 39's a businessman, I often try to find ways to connect with people in the same profession, especially often looking for foreign traders to both ask for news about Baghdad and to find someone with whom I can go back to my homeland. The great advantage is that the capital of the Muraj Kingdom is located on the coast and has a large harbour, where ships from many different countries around the world dock every day. I also sought to become friends with Indian wise men and enjoyed listening to them. But all that did not prevent me from regularly going to the king and discussing with the courtiers and the emirs, the vassals who were very close to the king. They asked me thousands of questions about my country and about themselves. Because I wanted to learn about their country and number 39's customs and laws, I asked them everything I was curious to know. Ads B Google equals window. Ads B Google, push. Under the rule of the King Muraj there was an island called Castle. People there assert that they hear the sound of bronze drums every night, which reminds people of the sailors and number 39's words that the god Dajjal lives here. I came up with the idea that I wanted to witness that mystery. During the trip, I also saw fish from 100 to 200 hands long. They scared us more than they did anything to harm us. They are so shy that you can just knock on the board and run away. I also saw other fish that were only about 2 hands long, but their heads were like owl heads. When I returned and walked around the wharf, I saw a ship docking into the harbor. Once anchored, people began to unload goods and merchants sent them to warehouses. Glancing at some of the packages and looking at the letters of the owners and number 39 names on each package, I saw my name. After careful examination, there was no doubt that they were indeed the packages I had loaded onto the ship on which I had landed from Balsora. I recognized the captain, but because he probably thought I was dead, he didn't and #39 recognize me. I approached and asked him who the parcels stored here belonged to. He replied, "On my ship there is a merchant in the city of Baghdad named Sinbad. One day, approaching an island, we thought, he boarded with many other passengers." What everyone thought was an island was actually the back of a giant whale sleeping on the water. It started to thrash when the hot earth fire hit its back because the passengers had started a fire to cook food. Finally it dived deep into the sea. Most of the people on its back drowned, and the unfortunate Sinbad was among them. These packages belonged to him and I decided to still sell them and then find someone from his family to return both capital and interest. "Captain, at that time I said, I am the Sinbad whom you thought was dead but in fact is alive, and these packages are mine." And quote. Scheherazade did not say anything more that night, but she continued the story the next night. And quote. Sinbad continued the story, saying to all of them, "When the captain heard me say that, he exclaimed, 'Oh, great God, one who can I believe now?' There are not many people honesty in this society. I saw Sinbad drown with my own eyes. The passengers on my train all saw the same thing as me, yet you dare to admit that you are Sinbad. How cheeky!" On the outside, everyone thought he was an honest person, yet he dared to shamelessly lie to take property that did not belong to him. "Please be patient, Captain," I told the captain, "and please listen to me." "So, what else do you want to say?" "Say it, I and number 39 am listening." I told him how I escaped death and how I met the horse herders of King Murraj, and these people brought me to the court. He seemed content to listen to bad things said, and he soon believed I was not a fraud when the passengers of his ship arrived. They recognized me and happily congratulated me. Finally the captain remembered and saw that it was indeed Sinbad. He hugged me and said with emotion, "Thank God. The person who gave him the luck to escape a great danger." I cannot express my joy. "Hey, here in number 39 's your property. Take it. It belongs to you, it and number 39 's up to you to use." I thanked him, praised his honesty, and as thanks, I asked him to accept some of the goods I gave him, but he definitely refused. I selected some of the most precious things from my packages to present to King Murraj. The king already knew about the unfortunate incident that had happened to me, so he asked where he got those rare objects. I told him what a coincidence it was that the continent came to Hop Fa. He shares my joy, accepts my gifts, but gives me many other things that are even more valuable. After that, I said goodbye to him and got back on the old ship. But before the ship sailed, I exchanged my remaining goods for local products. I brought with me agarwood, sandalwood, camphor, nutmeg, cloves, pepper and ginger. Passing through many islands, we finally landed at Balsora. Coming to this city, I had a quantity of goods worth up to 100,000 sequins. My family came out to welcome me, and I met my relatives again with all the enthusiasm and sincerity. I bought slaves, both male and female, bought fertile land, and built a big house. I settled down like that, determined to forget the hardships of the past and enjoy the joys of life. Sinbad stopped speaking at this point, ordering the musicians to play again the chorus that the story had interrupted. They continued to eat and drink until late in the evening, and when it was time to say goodbye, Sinbad ordered a bag of 100 sequins to be brought to the porter, saying, "Take this, Hindbad, go home and come back tomorrow. Here, listen to my adventure story." The porter left very embarrassed about the honor of receiving the gift. Telling the story to his wife and children when they got home, they were very happy and did not forget to thank God for giving them money through Sinbad. The next day, Hindbad dressed more neatly and cleaner than the day before and returned to the house of the generous traveler who happily received him with many friendly gestures. When all the invited guests had gathered, the table was set and they ate and drank for a long time. After the banquet, Sinbad spoke to his guests. "Sirs, please allow me to continue and hope you will be pleased to hear the story of my adventure on my second trip. Surely it will make you more excited than the stories of your first trip." Everyone was silent and Sinbad began to tell. "Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.